about that's what we're talking about today, sort of a different the walking the line between what you should be feeling, what you are feeling, and how to try to make sure that you do feel the seriousness or the levity when it's appropriate. So that's today's topic, and it is found on not on that page that my bookmark is in. It is found on page 193. Harchakot involving Kalut Rosh, or frivolity. Aside from the physical harchakot, it is also forbidden for a couple to act with kalut rosh, or frivolity, together during this period when the wife is a niddah. In Avot Rabbi Natan, Chazal explained that it is also necessary to insist on verbal, non-physical safeguards. Right? So again, we're in a situation, right? Think about how crazy it is, right? This woman is forbidden to you. It's like a major problem. It's not just like a suggestion. It's like a major halachic problem. Yeah. It's a major isser. And yet, and she's not just some random woman. She's actually the person that you love most in the world and are most attracted to in the world. And you're living together. And there's really nobody else to distract you. So you can imagine that's not really a great situation. You can imagine that you might have some troubles, you know, navigating that emotionally, right? So here's where we're seeing that you really the halachot are trying to add these frameworks, these protocols, these laws so that we can navigate this period very, very physically and emotionally rigidly without having to actually emotionally distance ourselves, if that makes sense. So here's the Avot Rabbi Natan, the first source on page 193. What is an example of a fence that the Torah made for its words? It states, "You shall not come close to a woman during the impurity of Niddah." One might think that one may hug her and kiss her and speak words of idleness with her. The Torah states, "You shall not come close," meaning don't even come close to it. Not just don't have intercourse with a niddah, that's an isser karet, but don't even come close to it, right? Why the Torah didn't have to add the words of don't come close. The Torah could have just said, don't be intimate. So there's something that's being added here, and the Avot Rabbi Natan is saying what's being added is the concept of putting like an extra fence, taking a step back. Okay. So Vanessa, I'm going to pass it to you for the intro and the next source.
But who is this directed at? Just at an adult, or what happens if her grandchildren come over and hug her?
A great question. No, this is just between husband and wife. We're not
Oh,
worried about anything, right? We're only trying to protect the
intimacy?
prohibition of being intimate with a niddah,
Okay.
of having
Okay.
intercourse with a niddah. Yeah, yeah. So the
That's fine.
grandchildren, the friends, the greengrocer, none of that is relevant.
Okay. Fabulous. Okay. However, not all idle talk is forbidden during the Niddah period. Rather, the primary problematic type of discussion is frivolous chatter, as evident from the following comment of Rabbi Akiva in Pirkei Avot. Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva would say, jesting and frivolity accustom a person to acts of licentiousness. Thus, since frivolity can lead to sin, the goal is to reduce one's frivolous conversation with one's wife during the period of Niddah to ensure that he does not come to sin with her. This measure of Kalut Rosh is codified in the Shulchan Aruch as follows.
Right. You read the intro to the next one, so give us the next one and then we'll pass it on.
Shulchan Aruch, one should not jest or act frivolously with her, Ramah, even verbally, lest he become led to sin.
Okay, so that's sort of what we were talking about with our question. There's a certain mood that's created, and you want to sometimes it's hard to get yourself to fit in with that, but that's the goal here. All right.
Mm.
So I will pass it now to hello, Rachel. You're next on my screen if you're available. But I know it's jumping right in, so I could pass by you this round. We're on page 193 at the bottom source. We're talking about the Harchakot involving Kalut Rosh, or frivolity.
Is that to me?
No, that was to Rachel, but
Oh,
is
okay.
that
I
okay?
can, I just didn't hear my name.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry.
I can jump in. Okay, aside from the physical Harchakot, it is also forbidden for a couple to act with
Hang on one
Kalut.
sec. We're at the bottom. We're the bottom source of that page.
Oh,
The Shach
got it.
clarifies.
The Shach clarifies that the definition of verbal frivolity refers to the type of conversation that could lead to promiscuity, suggestive or highly flirtatious behavior or speech. In the Shach and Yoredea, even verbally, if the type of speech leads to licentiousness, he should not speak with her in that way. This is the language of the tour.
Thank you. Hila, your screen is off, so I'm assuming that we're skipping you, but if you're available, pop up with a,
I'm happy to read.
oh, amazing. So we're at the top of page 194. Welcome, Bryna.
All right. Despite the limitations on frivolous actions and speech, or Shmuel laws and rules in the Shevet Halevi that it is permitted to buy flowers for one's wife for Shabbat, the same ruling is also given by the Mari Kohen.
So you see, we're like
So,
walking this line, right? Like, I don't know, buying flowers is a romantic gesture, or is it? But then again, then you get stuck with like, I don't want her to be in the red tent, you know? It's a very, very tight rope that we walk with the Harchakot. It's really complicated emotionally to be in that situation. All right, sorry I interrupted you, Tehila.
all good. Okay. Also, the picture's a little blurry, so if I misread something, just correct me. Okay.
Apologize.
Concerning bringing home flowers in honor of the Holy Shabbos, which has a precedent in the Talmud, Shabbat chapter 2, and in the Kabbalah, I was asked whether it is permitted to during the period of Niddah when the woman will be very happy about it. In my humble opinion, there is no concern at all. However, during the week, one should be stringent, since flowers are only given as a more intimate type of present, unless it is immediately prior to him being pure. Staying in the mikvah.
So there's like a subtle difference between bringing home flowers for Shabbos, even though they're really flowers for your wife for Shabbos, and just coming home on a Tuesday with a bouquet of flowers, right? There's different meaning to that. And I think we would all see that, right? Do you mind, sorry, I keep interrupting you, but do you mind finishing the Maricon and then we'll pass it on to Becky?
Sure, just quick question. Do you think because of Shabbos, or do you think it's because of the precedent, like there being like Kabbalah around it and something in Gemara Shabbos that there's something about
All of the above,
uh,
I think. Meaning there
okay.
is this precedent. You'll see in the footnote, he talks about the story of this old man who was bringing home two hadassim, two myrtle branches, and they asked him why you're doing it. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who had been like in a cave or whatever, and he said, "Well, one is for Shamor and one is for Zachor." And it was like a whole story. It's actually a beautiful interpretation that I remember seeing about it once. But so that's what he's referring to. This idea of like bringing home, living things, flowers, branches, greenery for Shabbos. And it's even a Kabbalistic idea. So the question is, so then, but do we have to pause that while my wife is Anita? Because it's also actually a really lovely gesture. And so the
Mhm.
answer is no. The answer is no. And
Okay.
I think for two reasons. First of all, you're right, because it has a bit of that like, but this is a Kabbalistic thing that we do. And it's not, and for that reason, maybe the connected to the second piece, which is not only about your wife, right? Like this is not sometimes, hopefully, it's also a romantic gesture when you bring home, flowers on a Friday, but it's also sort of like a Shabbos preparation and kavod Shabbos, and you're, beautifying the home, et cetera, et cetera. It has less, um, I don't want to say significance, but it has less intimacy, I guess is the word that he uses, on Erev Shabbos than it does on any other day of the week.
Mhm. Okay, should I continue with Mara Cohen?
Please.
Okay. It is permitted to give one's wife a gift during the time when she is Niddah and to bring her flowers in honor of Shabbat, even though giving a gift causes a feeling of closeness. But one should be careful not to give her a gift directly due to the prohibition of passing discussed below, but rather place it before.
Thank you. Becky, I'm passing to you, but are you okay? Because you look like you had somebody else that you had to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
My
Okay.
my baby was here, but yeah, I'm good now. Okay. Rav Yaakov Neuberger, Rosh Yeshiva at writes that expressing love using words such as I love you may be permitted as well in many cultures, since it is often not considered an expression of extreme intimacy today. My students have also told me that some forbid expressing one's love for the other in a direct, straightforward fashion. But in my humble opinion, the definition of idle words and frivolity would seem to depend on every individual culture. And in many, many cultures, expressing love to a spouse is not considered hergel, habituation that could lead to sin, and is permitted while she is a niddah.
Amazing. Could I trouble you to read the footnote? Can you see it?
Yes. 13.
Yeah.
Rav Neuberger notes in support of his ruling that such expressions of love are extremely critical to be expressed during these times, since many women feel emotionally distanced from their husbands, especially during their early years of marriage, and need the emotional support of such statements. Rav Neuberger also discusses whether playing games such as chess are considered Kalut Rosh. He cites some poskim who are stringent, such as Rav Eliashiv, but suggests that in the United States, playing such games is not considered an intimate activity that could lead to sin.
So again, we're like really walking the line because you want to be able to have a relationship and you don't want to feel emotional distance, but you also want to be able to, to function for almost 2 weeks without being intimate. So you're really tiptoeing through the woods there. And I just wanted to hear you say that piece that like actually in some cases it's really important to say I love you. Like yes, I could see the Havamini. I could see the thought that like maybe we shouldn't because maybe it's gonna, make you feel even closer, etc. That's the peak of every romantic movie is when they acknowledge their love for each other. But actually, this particular, when you're in a long-term relationship, saying I love you is not that, one and done, amazing, emotional peak. Actually, something that everybody needs to hear. And especially when a woman is Anita, when we're worried about when we're so careful about physical distance, so we don't want any of the emotional distance to creep in. This is a time that it's important to make sure that you're not creating extra emotional distance. So I thought that was just a lovely idea. Brina, I don't know if you're able to see the page 195, Kol Isha and Niddah.
Yeah. This is like the perfect thing for me because this
I
is
was
the
thinking
hardest
that.
thing for me.
I know you're so musical. All right, I think might have some good news for you. Well, it depends who you follow. You'll see.
Oh, okay. The question of Kalisha also relates to the prohibition of Harchakot. Kalisha is the term used when referring to the prohibition for a man to hear a woman singing. The details of this prohibition are subject to substantial discussion and will be dealt with in more detail in further Tzurba Mirabanan volumes on Even HaEzer. Am I reading loud enough, or should I
Perfect.
read a little louder? Okay. But simply put, a woman's singing voice is defined by the halacha in a similar manner as certain concealed parts of her body. The Gemara describes this concept as follows: Masachet Brachot. Shmuel stated, a woman's singing voice is considered nakedness, as it is stated, for your voice is sweet and your appearance is lovely.
Thank you. The question before us relates to the application of Shmuel's principle to the laws of Niddah. Is a husband allowed to hear his wife singing while she's a Niddah? The question can be better appreciated if we examine the following statement of the Gemara in Shabbat concerning how the halachot of Niddah compare to those of other forbidden women. Right, so here you are living with somebody who is actually just as forbidden to you as your neighbor's wife, except that she's living in your house and you love her and you're used to being close with her. Okay, so you can see that's a little bit trickier. A dilemma was raised before the sages. With regard to a menstruating woman, what is the halacha? May she sleep with her husband in one bed while she's in her clothes and he's in his clothes? Come and hear a resolution from a Braita. It is stated, and he has not eaten upon the mountains, neither has he lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, neither has he defiled his neighbor's wife, neither has he come near to a woman in her impurity. This verse juxtaposes a menstruating woman to his neighbor's wife. Just as lying together with his neighbor's wife, even when he's in his clothes and she's in her clothes, is prohibited, so too lying with his wife when she's menstruating, even when he's in his clothes and she's in her clothes, is prohibited. According to the Gemara, then, the rules concerning a man and a woman. Sorry, that's not me, that's you, Vanessa.
My dog might start barking. Okay.
Okay.
According to the Gemara, then, the rules concerning a man and woman who are not married to each other are somewhat equivalent to those of a husband and wife when she is in Niddah, specifically concerning sleeping in the same bed. Okay. The Piche Tshuva is uncertain whether this comparison extends to the halacha of Kol Isha, as well as would forbid a man from hearing his wife sing when she's in Niddah. Piche Tshuva. Even if each of them is in their clothes, the question of whether it is permitted to hear her sing requires analysis, since the Gemara in Shabbat 13a states that this verse likens a menstruating woman to his fellow's wife. If so, it seems that it is forbidden. Since it is forbidden concerning one fellow's wife, as it is stated in Bracha 24a, that the voice of a woman is considered irva, nakedness. And the Rosh there states that this means it is forbidden to listen to it. All of the poskim write the same thing, that Kol Isha is forbidden while one is in Niddah, but the matter requires further analysis.
Beautiful. So the pasuk seems to equate a woman who's a Niddah with someone else's wife, and just like you can't listen to somebody else's wife singing, so maybe you also can't listen to your own wife when she's a Niddah singing, but he's not sure. But it seems like there's a lot of support for it, but he's not, the Pitrei Tshuva is not willing to go that far. All right, so now we are, I think, at Rachel.
Okay, but some Achronim, such as the Tlafot Re'im, reject the comparison with regard to this case and permit Kol Isha for a Niddah. I saw the Pitrei Tshuva who was unsure whether it is permitted for a husband to hear his wife's singing voice when she is a Niddah. See his words there. But I would say that it is permitted based on what the Rama writes there in Seif 7, that it is permitted to gaze at one's wife while she is Niddah in her revealed places. This is so, although he has pleasure from gazing at her, and the like is certainly forbidden with regard to the wife of another, as explained in Berachot 24a and in Avodah Zarah 20a, that it is forbidden even with respect to an unmarried woman. And in the source, i.e. the verse from which they derive in Berachot, that the voice of a woman is erba, it can be seen that Kol Isha is similar to the prohibition of gazing at the appearance of a woman who is erba, as it states that your voice is sweet and your appearance is beautiful, and the two are equivalent. It is clear from here that a Niddah is not compared to the wife of another concerning these elements in Shir Hashirim, and in my mind, this is a proof in which there is no rebuttal.
So he's saying, but look at a different comparison. Don't look at the wife when she's menstruating and somebody else's wife. Look at the fact that the Kol Isha is compared to somebody being beautiful physically, externally. And that, we say, since we know that looking at your wife and her beauty is fine when she's a Niddah, so therefore also listening to her voice should be okay when she's a Niddah. So that's where he's coming from. And that brings us, I feel like, to Tehillah.
Sure, I'm happy to read. I just lost where we are,
Oh,
so
no worries. We are at the bottom of 196, introducing the next two sources.
okay, got it. Basam Achronim?
Yeah, according to the Toafot Re'em.
Oh, thank you. According to the Toafot Re'em, the juxtaposition of voice and appearance in Shir Shirim indicates that the two prohibitions are similar. Therefore, just as he's the Kalut by the husband at his wife is permitted while she is at Niddah, even though it is forbidden to gaze at other women, so too listening to her sing is also permitted. Contemporary poskim are also divided as to whether it is permitted to hear one's wife sing when she is in Niddah. The question is relevant not only to mundane singing, but also to singing Zmirot on Shabbat. According to Rav Moshe Feinstein in Igrat Moshe and Rav Shmuel Lozner in Shiri Shevet Halevi, it is forbidden. Okay, so response to Igrat Moshe, Your Idea 275. Concerning whether it is permitted to listen to one's wife singing when she is Niddah, the Pitrei Tshuva remains uncertain, therefore it is proper to be stringent. Okay, in the Shirei Shevet Halevi, Simon 195 says too, the Pitrei Tshuva writes that it may be forbidden to listen to one's wife sing when she is in Niddah. as the Gemara makes a comparison between it, the prohibition of Niddah, and those of his fellow wife, and only
Fellow's
seclusion.
wife. Like somebody else's
His
wife.
fellow wife. Yeah, sorry. And only seclusion, yichud, is permitted with one's Niddah wife in contrast to another's wife. Though he concluded the matter requires further analysis, it would seem clear that it is forbidden, as the voice of the woman is erva, and that is what the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch writes. There's no allowance regarding Shabbos smirot either, even when there are other household members.
He's tough. All right. I think, Becky, is that back to you? All my pictures have all gotten mixed up. I don't know why.
Okay. Rav Herschel Schachter is also stringent. The Pitzchei Tshuva is uncertain about a man listening to the singing voice of his wife who is a Niddah, out of concern that it may be categorized as areas that are normally covered. In practice, one should be stringent on this matter.
Brian,
Continue?
it's true you had a very tiny one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Rav Ovadia Yosef.
Okay. But Rav Ovadia Yosef is lenient about singing in his Taharat Habayit. Taharat Habayit, volume 2, 1229. It is permitted to listen to one's wife's singing voice when she is a Niddah, even though the sages state that the voice of a woman is erva, and this is the ruling of the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch and Even HaEzer, that it is forbidden to hear the singing voice of one of the women who are forbidden to him. Nevertheless, one may be lenient concerning one's wife when she is a Niddah. For since she will eventually be permitted to him, they will not come to stumble. And all the more so, one may be lenient in a case of need, such as where she sings a lullaby to a crying baby in order to calm him down or put him to sleep. Likewise, it is permitted to sing Shabbat Smirot and the like with one's wife who is a Niddah, and one who is stringent will be blessed.
Beautiful. So there's definitely room for leniency according to Rav Ovadia Yosef. But it's not bad to be stringent. It's not like a crazy idea, but there's lots of room to be lenient. Did I skip anybody this round? I'm like super confused. Are we back to me? I'll take it. Some Ashkenazi poskim are lenient as well, including Rav Eliashiv and Rav Mordechai Willig. We will conclude this share by noting that most of the harchakot between a husband and wife are parallel to and extend beyond the restrictions upon any man and woman. Nevertheless, all agree that yichud, seclusion, of a husband with his wife who's a Niddah is permitted, based on the explicit Gemara in Sanhedrin quoted below. The phrase "set about with lilies," Shir Hashirim, is said in praise of the Jewish people, as they do not breach even a fence made of lilies, since the Jewish people observe both Torah law as well as rabbinic ordinances and decrees. And this is like an incident involving Rav Kahana, as a certain heretic said to Rav Kahana, "You say that it's permitted for a menstruating woman to seclude herself with a man, i.e. her husband. Is it possible to set fire to chips of kindling and not have them blaze and burn?" Meaning, like, how could you have two people in the same house that, are in love with each other and forbidden to each other? That's just crazy. Rav Kahana said to him, "The Torah testifies concerning us that we are set about with lilies, as the Jewish people do not breach even a fence made of lilies." There's such a beautiful idea, right? And again, that's that balance between this logically, rationally is a really bad idea, and yet we trust you to manage it. So we're going to help you. We're going to set up systems that really support you in managing it, but we also still expect you to manage it. And it's an interesting balance, I find. You know what, Becky, will you finish us off? Because you had only tiny ones today.
Accordingly,
Yeah.
Accordingly, the Shulchan Aruch rules that yichud is permitted, as simply being alone together is unlikely to lead them to sin if they have already had relations at least once previously. Shulchan Aruch. But it is permitted to be alone with her, as since he has already had relations with her at least once, his inclination will no longer overcome him.
So again, you can hear in the halacha that like tension, right? And I think we saw it a little bit with the eating, right? That there's certain things that are okay for women and not okay for men. Like there's this tension always between trying to get that exactly right, the mood that that should be in the home and the mood that you might be in, which is what, that was our question today. So sometimes they're not perfectly matched. So we need to have these very rigid structures around it. Sometimes, hopefully, that helps us to make our moods match, right? So certainly your environment affects you very strongly. So we'll close here. Next week, we will do the summary because I really feel it's important to do the summaries. If you want to do the further iyun on page 203 about yichud with a chassan and kala when she's a niddah at the wedding and they haven't been intimate yet, that I feel free to read on your own, because when we finish the review, we're going to start into the next section of the laws of Harchakot.
Do some people translate the suga b'shoshanim, a hedge of roses, instead of a fence made
So
of lilies?
we often use Shoshana to be a rose, because
Yeah.
Shoshana ben Achochim, maybe because there's like a rose among thorns, but I think technically, like not biologically, but whatever the word is for plants, botanically, I think it's supposed to be a lily, or maybe it's
Okay.
some sort of, like, maybe I just don't know enough about botany to
That's because
Yeah.
isn't Rabbi Norman's lamb a hedge of roses?
hedge of roses. Yeah. So I don't know. I think also because it talks about thorns, right? So why am I